Emily and Richard Carter lived in a grand mansion atop the highest hill in their town. Their home was filled with gleaming marble floors, expensive art, and a garden that seemed to bloom year-round. They drove shiny black luxury cars and wore designer clothes that made heads turn wherever they went. To them, life was a never-ending party, and they were the stars of the show. Every weekend, the Carters enjoyed dining at the finest restaurants, believing they deserved nothing but the best. They often boasted about their latest vacation to exotic places and their connections to high-profile celebrities. Emily loved to flaunt her diamond-studded jewelry, while Richard relished in sharing stories of his business triumphs, which he believed set him apart from everyone else. Their laughter echoed through the restaurant as they made plans for yet another lavish getaway. However, beneath their glamorous exterior lay an air of superiority that could be felt by those around them. They believed that money could buy anything, including respect. Often, they looked down on those who served them, like waiters and cashiers, viewing them as mere tools to cater to their desires. This attitude was particularly evident during one fateful evening when they decided to visit a new upscale restaurant in town. As they walked through the door, the couple assumed they would receive special treatment simply because of their wealth. They scanned the room with arrogant smiles, critiquing decor and menu items before even sitting down. Their eyes fell on an elderly waiter who approached their table with a warm smile. Little did they know that this encounter would reveal much more than just their entitlement. It would unveil a story of courage and sacrifice that had shaped their country's history. As the Carters settled into their table, a gentle figure approached with a warm smile. The elderly waiter, named Mr. Thompson, had silver hair that danced with the light and deep-set eyes filled with kindness. He wore a simple, neat uniform that reflected his dedication to the job but did not reveal the layers of his rich past. While many might see him just as a server, Mr. Thompson carried with him stories that could fill the pages of a history book. He greeted the couple politely, asking if they were ready to order. His voice was calm and steady, exuding a quiet strength. Mr. Thompson had spent decades working in various restaurants, always finding joy in serving others, yet he never sought the limelight or attention for himself. Most patrons admired his willingness to help, but few knew that he had once worn a uniform far different from the one he donned now. Years ago, during a time of conflict in the country, Mr. Thompson had bravely enlisted in the military. His heart had been filled with a sense of duty, guiding him through dangerous missions where he risked his life to protect others. He might have preferred to forget some of those haunting memories, but they lingered in his mind at times, reminding him of both tragedy and heroism. Despite this heavy history, Mr. Thompson remained humble. His years of service were not something he boasted about, rather, they shaped his values, a deep appreciation for life and the people around him. As he patiently took the Carters' orders, he didn't show any resentment toward their arrogance. All he hoped for was to provide good service and share a little warmth through his actions, never knowing how fate would soon intertwine their lives, revealing truths that would lead to a surprising revelation. As Mr. Thompson approached the Carters' table, the atmosphere shifted from the elegant ambience of the restaurant to a palpable tension. Emily glanced at Richard with a smirk, clearly ready to assert their superiority. Finally, someone who looks like they know how to serve, she remarked aloud, her tone dripping with condescension as she eyed Mr. Thompson's simple uniform. With a faint smile, Mr. Thompson introduced himself and asked if they were ready to order. Instead of engaging with him respectfully, Richard waved his hand dismissively as if to brush away a pesky fly. "Just bring us the best thing on the menu," he ordered, his voice booming above the soft background music. The elderly waiter nodded calmly, taking careful note of their request. As Mr. Thompson turned to leave, Emily added with a laugh, "And make sure it's not too cold. I don't want to choke on my food." Her laughter echoed in the air, and Richard joined in, both of them reveling in their cruelty. The waiter paused for just a moment before moving away, hiding his hurt feelings beneath his practiced demeanor. Once they had ordered, the couple resumed their conversation about their extravagant lifestyle, discussing vacations, fashion trends, and their latest purchases. They made jokes that belittled others around them, showcasing their arrogance. When Mr. Thompson returned with their drinks, Emily picked up her glass and exaggeratedly sniffed it before taking a sip. "This isn't even chilled properly," she exclaimed loudly enough for nearby diners to hear. Throughout this encounter, Mr. Thompson maintained his composure, offering polite responses and ensuring they had everything they needed. Yet inside, he felt a growing sadness as he realized how easily people could forget kindness in the face of wealth. Little did the Carters know that their harsh words were merely setting the stage for an unforgettable revelation that would change everything. As Mr. Thompson returned with their appetizers, Emily leaned back in her chair and scoffed, "You call this the best? It looks like it was thrown together by a child." Her words hung in the air like a heavy cloud, and Richard chuckled, nodding in agreement as he picked at his food with disdain. "Honestly," he said, turning to Mr. Thompson, "you really should consider a different career. Maybe something more suited to your skill level." The insult was thinly veiled behind a fake smile, but the cruelty shone through. Mr. Thompson felt a sting in his heart but kept his expression neutral as he responded, "I hope you enjoy your meal." Emily wasn't finished yet. As she took a bite of her dish, she scrunched up her nose dramatically and exclaimed, "Boo! This is cold. Did you forget to heat it up? Or are you just not paying attention?" She laughed mockingly, and Richard joined in, each finding amusement in the elderly waiter's discomfort. Throughout the meal, they continued to make snide comments about Mr. Thompson's age and appearance. "I guess they don't hire young people here," Emily said flippantly after observing how slowly he walked back to their table with their main courses. "It's probably safer for you to stay out of the way of the real servers," Richard added, smirking. Each insult chipped away at Mr. Thompson's spirit, yet he maintained his professionalism. He served them with grace, pouring water into their glasses while suppressing the urge to respond with anger or hurt feelings. The couple's lack of empathy was glaring. They saw him only as a servant rather than as a person with a rich history and life experiences that could rival their own. They had no idea that behind his gentle demeanor lay stories of bravery and sacrifice, stories that would soon surface and change their perspective forever. As Mr. Thompson stood at the edge of the bustling restaurant, memories from decades earlier surged into his mind, pulling him away from the present moment. It was a time of chaos and fear, a critical moment in history when his country was under threat. He found himself back in the midst of a war zone, where bravery and quick thinking were required every single day. In the flashback, young Thompson wore a military uniform that seemed far too big for his slender frame. His heart raced as he heard distant explosions and gunfire echoing through the air. He was part of a team on a dangerous mission to rescue civilians trapped in a village under siege. With courage fueling his every step, he navigated through smoke and rubble, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As they reached the village, panic filled the air. People were crying for help, desperate and scared. Without hesitation, Mr. Thompson led his squad into the heart of danger, shouting commands to keep everyone calm and organized. He spotted a group of children huddled together, trembling with fear near an abandoned building. Knowing time was critical, he dashed towards them, scooping up one child in each arm while urging the others to follow. The sound of gunfire rang out nearby as they made their escape, but Mr. Thompson kept his focus on the children, shielding them with his body when necessary. Finally reaching safety, he handed them over to waiting medics just as enemy forces began closing in. Returning to the present moment in the restaurant, Mr. Thompson's heart swelled with pride and sadness. He had saved lives that day and many others during his service. Yet here he was now, facing insults from those who had no idea of his past sacrifices. The contrast between his heroic history and their dismissive attitude struck him deeply, reminding him that true valor often goes unrecognized by those who live only for themselves. As Mr. Thompson poured another glass of water for the Carters, he overheard a nearby table filled with young diners discussing the news. Their conversation shifted to a recent documentary highlighting the bravery of veterans who served during the war. Words like hero and sacrifice floated through the air, causing Mr. Thompson's heart to race. He could feel their admiration, and it struck him how different their perspective was compared to that of Emily and Richard. Suddenly, these words became an awakening for him. In that moment, he realized how long he had brushed aside his own worth in favor of humility. For so long, he had let insults roll off his back, believing that his past should stay buried and unmentioned. But now, it felt wrong to remain silent while the couple continued belittling him. He took a deep breath, gathering courage as he approached their table once more. "Excuse me," he began, his voice steady but low, "I couldn't help but overhear your conversation about heroes." Emily raised an eyebrow, clearly uninterested in what he had to say. "What about them?" she replied dismissively. Mr. Thompson continued, "You see, being a hero isn't just about grand gestures or fame, sometimes it's about quiet sacrifices made in the shadows." The couple exchanged confused looks as they processed his words. Richard scoffed, waving him off. "Please, spare us the lecture. Just serve our food." But this time, Mr. Thompson felt different, empowered by the recognition of his own past. "I've dedicated my life to serving others," he said firmly, his eyes meeting theirs with intensity. "And while I may wear this uniform now, it doesn't define who I am or what I've done." A tense silence filled the space between them as Mr. Thompson stood tall, ready to confront their disdain head-on. This was his turning point, the moment where he would no longer allow their arrogance to undermine his bravery and sacrifice. Emily and Richard sat in surprised silence as Mr. Thompson's words lingered in the air, transforming the atmosphere around their table. For the first time, their laughter had faded, replaced by confusion and a sense of unease. They exchanged glances, both unsure of how to respond to this sudden shift in dynamic. Richard's confident facade began to crack. "What do you mean by that?" he asked, his voice lacking its usual bravado. The sharpness in his tone was gone, replaced by an uncertainty that neither of them had anticipated. Emily shifted in her seat, finally realizing that this was not just a simple server but a man with a story, one they had dismissed without a second thought. Mr. Thompson's unwavering gaze held them accountable as he continued, "I may wear this uniform now, but it's filled with the weight of my experiences. I have seen things you can hardly imagine." The couple could feel the gravity of his words sinking in, and for the first time, they felt uncomfortable in their own skin. Emily opened her mouth to retort but found no words, only the realization that their previous comments now sounded foolish and cruel. She fidgeted with her napkin as Richard clenched his jaw, both grappling with an awareness that began to chip away at their arrogance. Suddenly feeling exposed under Mr. Thompson's scrutiny, Richard attempted to regain control of the conversation. "Look," he said defensively, "we were just having fun. We didn't mean anything by it." But his attempt at dismissal fell flat. They both knew it was more than just playful banter. As Mr. Thompson stepped back slightly, allowing silence to envelop them once more, Emily couldn't shake off the feeling of guilt creeping into her heart. It dawned on her that beneath Mr. Thompson's humble demeanor lay a depth of character they had overlooked, a true hero who deserved respect rather than ridicule. The couple's perspectives began to shift as they confronted their own misconceptions about worth and dignity, realizing that they had much more to learn about bravery beyond what money could buy. As the tense silence lingered around the table, the restaurant's atmosphere remained charged with unspoken emotions. Suddenly, a familiar voice broke through the quiet. It was a fellow diner named Mr. Johnson, an elderly gentleman who had been watching the scene unfold from a nearby table. He stood up with a glimmer of recognition in his eyes. "Mr. Thompson," he called out, drawing everyone's attention. "Is that really you?" The shock and surprise were evident in his tone, and the curious gaze of other diners turned toward the waiter. "Yes, it's me," Mr. Thompson replied, slightly bewildered yet intrigued by this interruption. He had not expected anyone to acknowledge him like this. Mr. Johnson approached the couple's table, his expression shifting from disbelief to admiration. "I remember you," he exclaimed. "You were my commanding officer in the war. You saved so many lives during that mission, you were a true hero." The room fell silent as all eyes turned toward Mr. Thompson, realization dawning on Emily and Richard about who they had been belittling just moments before. Shock washed over their faces as Mr. Johnson continued, "I often share your story with others, how you led your team into danger to rescue those trapped civilians. You deserve every bit of respect, not mockery." Mr. Thompson shifted uncomfortably, humbled by the sudden spotlight on his past bravery but also feeling gratitude for being recognized at last. Emily and Richard exchanged glances filled with guilt and astonishment as they began to comprehend the weight of their earlier words. In that moment, they realized that Mr. Thompson was much more than just a waiter. He was a man whose courageous actions had shaped lives during an era of hardship and conflict. Their previous arrogance began to crumble as they struggled to reconcile their prior behavior with this new understanding of Mr. Thompson's true identity, a hero deserving of honor and dignity rather than disdain. In the aftermath of Mr. Johnson's revelation, the atmosphere in the restaurant shifted dramatically. Emily and Richard sat quietly, their earlier arrogance evaporating as they processed what they had just learned. This experience served as a powerful reminder of the importance of respect for every individual, regardless of their job or status. Mr. Thompson had dedicated his life to serving others, yet the couple had dismissed him solely based on his role as a waiter. They realized that every person has a story, and often, those stories are filled with struggles and triumphs that go unnoticed by the world. The incident highlighted how easy it is to overlook the humanity in others when caught up in one's sense of superiority or entitlement. Emily glanced at Richard, her expression softening as she reflected on their behavior. "We really didn't know anything about him, did we?" she murmured, realizing how foolish it was to judge someone based on appearances alone. Richard nodded slowly, his mind racing with thoughts of all the times he had overlooked people in service roles without considering their experiences. As they watched Mr. Thompson interact with other diners, always polite and warm, the couple felt a pang of shame for their earlier disdain. They began to understand that true strength lies not in wealth or status but in humility and respect for others. This encounter served as a crucial turning point, reshaping their beliefs about worth and dignity. From that moment forward, Emily and Richard vowed to embrace humility over arrogance, recognizing that every person they meet has something valuable to offer, stories of courage, resilience, and wisdom that deserve acknowledgement and respect. Their journey towards understanding had begun, reminding them that they could learn profound lessons from those they once underestimated. As the evening progressed, the atmosphere in the restaurant shifted from tension and unease to a reflective quiet. Emily and Richard sat in contemplation, absorbing the profound impact of their encounter with Mr. Thompson. No longer were they merely a wealthy couple indulging in their own superiority, they had been awakened to a deeper understanding of the world around them. Mr. Thompson, meanwhile, felt a sense of validation and relief. The acknowledgement of his past had lifted a burden he had carried quietly for so long. He realized that standing tall and speaking up about his experiences did not diminish his humility but rather added to it. As patrons continued to express kindness and gratitude towards him, Mr. Thompson embraced the warmth of human connection, feeling more appreciated than he had in years. Meanwhile, Emily turned to Richard, her expression softened by the weight of new insights. "We've been so blinded by our privilege," she admitted. "I can't believe how easy it was to dismiss someone without knowing who they truly are." Richard nodded in agreement, his heart full of regret for the way they had treated Mr. Thompson just hours earlier. He recognized now that everyone, regardless of their profession or status, possesses a wealth of experience deserving of respect. As they left the restaurant, Emily and Richard made a silent pact to carry this lesson with them into their daily lives. They vowed to approach others with kindness and understanding, eager to learn from those around them rather than judge them based on superficial measures. In the meantime, Mr. Thompson continued serving guests with a renewed sense of purpose, understanding that every interaction was an opportunity to connect deeply and share humanity. Through this unexpected encounter, all three individuals had experienced profound growth, each inspired by the courage to recognize and honor the value within each person's story, ultimately bringing people together across all walks of life. This evening served as a powerful reminder that kindness and understanding can change perceptions and foster respect in a world that too often overlooks the worth of others.